Thank you very much, and thanks for coming along. Can you hear me? Good. I'm sorry about this. I don't like having to lean over. Can you hear me now? Sweet. I hope to leave you with a gem. You've come to this conference, got to find value. Sexy Rexy. First time I came to this conference was just pre-COVID. We were about 6 cents. We just bought some moose pasture in Nevada, and we were trying to get our permits approved in South Australia. Things have moved on. Green button. Only 2 green buttons. Which one do I press? Okay. We're in Australia and we're in Nevada. This is a headliner slide. I put it in there because I have to. Well, I just want to be honest with you. We are in Australia because we're Australians, but today it's a great place to be. You don't want to be in the Congo, you don't want to be in Africa, and you don't want to be in South America. That happens to be where the world's copper comes from. But we're in Australia. We're also in copper. I'll tell you about copper. I know you all want to hear it. Everyone's heard about copper. Everyone loves copper. We just woke up the right side of history. This is the first time in my life I've woken up the right side of history. We have now the 3rd largest reserve in the country, and I'll show you how that fits in with the whole story. It's a great project in South Australia and a gold project in Nevada. You've all seen this. Just pause for a moment to look at that. 3 years ago, they were telling us it's 16% compound annual growth for copper. When we started exploring for Hillside, it was expected to be a 3% growth rate annually for copper. Now Woodmac are telling us it's 29%. To achieve these daydreams of net zero by 2050, the whole combined sectors will have to find 60 billion, with inflation probably double that. 60 trillion. That's outrageous. And as Woodmac said, have a look at this. The red is the copper. Don't worry about the other metals. That's the copper targeted for development. It's declining. Albo, and I love him, 2030, 2035, all electric cars, fantastic. Tell me how to get there, Albo. Because there isn't enough copper. We're in deep trouble. Woodmac say it nicely, it seems impossible or at least implausible. I would say there's a lot of well-intentioned morons that are just not thinking straight. If we're going to get to the finish line, we have to start. That money has to be front-loaded at the beginning of this decade. We're 2 years in. We happen to have a project ready to go, and we've been through and fought the hard times. It's sitting here in South Australia on the Yorke Peninsula. South Australia, one of the great states in Australia to be, but particularly if you're hunting copper, because we've got the Great Gawler Craton. We didn't really discover this. It was discovered by some prospectors on the Copper Coast 200 years ago, and Western Mining outlined it in the 80s. We just followed up on it. There's a picture. I'm not going to dwell on it. We've published this before, but it was a cartoon. We have these skarns taking our copper to the surface. I just wanted to put that up because this is what we've been telling the world. Just recently, we invested $1.5 million in some high-tech, high-size 3D seismic, shooting down to 3 kilometres. When you look at our resource, now we have 2 million tonne of copper, not 2 million tonne of rock, or 2 million tonne of copper in our resource, 1 million tonne of reserve. I'll repeat that number. That's what it looks like. Open everywhere, a big pit. When we shot the seismic, remember the picture before? When we talked about the heat source and how copper comes to the surface? That's what we got back from the seismic. I'm not going to make you wade through it. This is geophysicist heaven. This is black box stuff. This is challenging. The little lines in the top corner where we call the Hillside domain skarn deposit, those little lines, they're our drill holes. Our deepest hole is 700 metres. The other two big copper projects in this country are owned by Oz Minerals and BHP. They're exploring at 2 kilometres below the surface. We ran the seismic, and when I convert those squiggles on a page to a three-dimensional picture, it's pointing at that big heat source that we drew in our cartoon. We think we've discovered the source of copper at Hillside. And we now have data that'll serve our exploration geologists for the next 20 years, outlining all the structures down to 3 kilometres by 4 by 4 by 3 kilometres at our site. This is a crazy valuable data set that we've only just released to the market. And we've actually set a drill rig on it today. But I want to talk real, not just exploration excitement. You know, we discovered this deposit in 2009. We achieved our first main permit in 2014. And we got in the middle of COVID, the minister in South Australia rings me up. I couldn't leave my bedroom because we were under curfew, and tells me, you've got your permit, you can start. I'm thinking, awesome. I'm not even allowed out of my bedroom. But we finally got it. $25 million 7 years later, all of our environmental permits. There is a journey to go. Well, what does that really mean? We are currently repricing our feasibility, getting ready for construction. That's just a bit of a look-see at the process plant, so you know things are happening. We're working with the Cinco on this. But I wanted to point to one of my gems today. It's a crusher. The benefit of hindsight and the privilege of foresight, and knowing the importance of copper and seeing the inflation the world's facing, we've decided to change our crusher at the front end from a jaw crusher to a gyratory crusher. What does that mean? That means our 6 million ore tonne per annum project could ramp towards 15 million ore tonnes. Not a 10% or a 20% increment, a massive increase. We're looking at being able to ramp this project from 6 in production through to 8, and then in stage 2 take it to 10, taking it from 35,000 tonne of copper up to maybe close on 60. A substantial and significant change for one of the most significant projects that has been in the go bay toiling permitting for a long time. I just want to reflect on two things, and here's what I want to leave you with on Hillside. We are already the 3rd largest reserve in Australia. 1 million tonne of copper, and we've got a 2 million tonne resource. We have 800 drill holes, all diamond, and 240 kilometres supporting this. It's not a joke. It's ready to finance with banks, and that's what we're working on at the moment. But just remember that 1 million tonne of copper in reserve in the ground. The last transaction to take place in Australia was the CSA sale by Glencore. The acquirer paid $1.15 billion US, plus gave away a fair bit of upside in the smelter return and that. Can I just paint that picture for you? They bought 267,000 tonne of copper reserves. Now, it's a producer. Right, so don't get me wrong, there's a big difference. We've got to build our mine, they're producing. It's a tired old deep lady at Cobar. They paid $2 per pound of copper reserve in the ground. $2 a pound. We're worth 4 cents per pound. We're worth 2 cents per pound of resource. You can't get any better than that for a project ready to go. That's not a 10-bagger. No, that's a 50-bagger. Now, okay, we've got to build ours. So what? 1 million tonne, $2 a pound, $2 billion. Let's say, for arguments, it costs us $500 million US to build it. That's still $1.5 billion of value just sitting there. Fantastic investment opportunity right there, Rex Minerals. But I have to get out the steak knives and tell you about our other opportunity, because when I first spoke at this project, at this conference, right, someone afterwards was cheeky and asked the audience whether or not it was a good idea buying moose pasture in Nevada. We had no answers. Well, we've turned this little project, Hog Ranch, into one of the hottest gold properties in North America. The only reason I put this up is to show you that, like South Australia, you want to be an elephant country. Kalgoorlie's elephant country? I know, I used to mine gold in Kalgoorlie. In Nevada, Nevada is elephant country. And Hog Ranch is an elephant sitting in elephant country. It's at a significant, globally important place on the map. But we didn't really know all this when we bought it. It's just that Western Mining paid $100 million in 1988 to buy it and left 4 years later. That's why we bought it. We thought there'd be some leftovers. Well, we were wrong. So we started drilling around the old pits, and in no time we put 2 million ounces on the book. Now this is a whole different world. And geos know this. Western Australia is 2.5 billion years old. Nevada's 16 million years old. It's an infant in comparison, and it's an infant in complexity. It's a lot different. We're 2 million ounces today, and we stopped and we've gone, hang on, what's going on here? We've bought some better geos and we've stepped back. Now this is an image. Look, see the little thing at the bottom called bells? That wasn't that big when we bought it, but we had a vision that maybe we could expand on an old pit that Western Mining had started but never got into. It's turned into all of that blue. We've now got 500,000 ounces at the Bells pit alone, 1.5 million ounces at Christa, and we've made a new discovery at Airport, and then we started doing things like magnetics and geochemistry, and holy dooly, this thing has just popped. Put an announcement out yesterday, our first drill hole on the current program for this year, 140 metres from surface at 0.6. The first 20 or 30 went through backfill, which ran 0.5 gram. 40 or 50 metres at 1 gram. Now this is Nevada, this heap leaches. Just so you know the difference between a heap leach. It's not popular in Australia. I built one at St Ives many years ago. You put the material on the surface and you run a garden hose up and down it with drippers on the end, and you send your solution through and you water it and you collect it at the bottom. That's how you treat it. There's no big cost in crushing and treating and tailings dams and all this sort of stuff. Total operating cost for a heap leach is $10 per ore tonne. A lot of Australian outback gold projects are paying $30, $40, $50 a tonne just to treat it. And they're paying $200, $300 a tonne to mine it. We've got mining and processing costs at $10 ore tonne. Hog Ranch is a burster. But we're just getting started at it. It's a true and disappointing fact that as a small company, even though we have $44 million in the bank, it's not a lot to take on two globally exciting projects like Hillside and Hog Ranch, which both are bristling with exploration opportunity. Both are very close to being able to take into production, but Hillside is our main piece. It's our focal point. That's what we're working on. And I'm just going to leave you with this, right? It's awesome to be in copper. It's awesome to be in Australia. It's not lucky. We spent $170 million, and many of us have lost our hair and our youth getting this thing permitted, which is not an easy game anymore, absent maybe Western Australia, where you can still get things done quickly. But if we've got a hope, we need so much copper. Copper's something to invest in today, put in your bottom drawer, and leave it to your kids, and they'll thank you. I think Friedland said at first, revenge of the miners. Forget Apple, Google, Facebook. One day your kids will go, shit, my parents bought copper in the day. How lucky am I, right? That's going to happen, has to happen. Or we're all going out backwards. You're not looking for tomorrow's quick turn here. It's like, buy this, give it to your kids, stick it in the bottom drawer, wake up 10 years from now and see what's happened. I'm putting it away for my children for sure. Anyway, look, thanks. 12 minutes, sorry, that's all I could give you, but if you really want to know some details, come to our booth and we'll be more than happy to take you through it. Thanks a lot.